Hello, boys and girls, and happy Wednesday. We are looking at our passage adapted from Robert Fulton. I am going to do question 1, and we are going to do question 2. Then you are going to do questions 3 and 4. Okay, so before we begin, we need to remember that there are different types of text structures. There's compare and contrast, problem and solution, cause and effect, description, and time, order, and sequence. Most of the time, we will see compare and contrast, time, order, and sequence, and we will also be seeing cause and effect, especially when we are looking at a nonfiction text like adapted from Robert Fulton. Let's look at question number 1. Like I'm going to do question 1. What is the connection between paragraphs 1 and 2? This word connection I'm going to box because it's asking me how paragraphs 1 and 2 are similar, and I am going to underline paragraphs 1 and 3. I'm sorry, not 1 and 2. For my blind answer, I am going to clear this so I can scroll down and show you. I am going to type this for you as well, but I have paragraph 1, so I can put all my key information for paragraph 1. I'm going to make a 3-column chart, my S for how they are similar, and then paragraph 3. So again, I will type this for you so you can read it clearly, but this is the type of line answer that I am going to be creating. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause. So let's go back up to paragraph 1 on our text. Again, I said this was nonfiction. I know because it's telling me the text is about Robert Fulton, the man who invented the steamboat. So I'm going to box. I know it's nonfiction, and I'm going to ask myself how steamboats were invented. Okay, again, you don't have to have the same exact question as I do, but you do have to have a question that is relevant and connected to the text. Let's start with paragraph 1, and we are going to underline key details. Mr. Fulton, married the daughter of a Mr. Walter Livingston. This Mr. Livingston had a relative who was a great man and a rich man. He was very interested in all inventions and often helped inventors with his money. He had long believed that boats could be moved by steam. Okay, I'm going to pause there because this is a key detail. Believe that boats could be moved by steam. At one time, the state of New York gave him the right of all steamboats for 20 years. Again, I'm going to pause because it says New York gave him the right of all steamboats. And I see I have a little 1, so I need to scroll down and see what the right means. And it says he was the only person allowed to build and sell steamboats. So that is super important, and that's why we need to underline it. He was given the right if he would get one steamboat running within a year, but the year passed and the boat was not built. Everybody made fun of his grand rights. At this time, our governor made him our ambassador to France. There he met Robert Fulton for the first time, and in Paris, Mr. Livingston and Mr. Fulton made a steamboat. So I'm going to underline that Mr. Livingston and Mr. Fulton made a steamboat. Okay. If you need more time to underline these few key details, please pause your screen, and then we'll continue reading when you are ready. All right, let's look at paragraph 2. When it was finished, they invited their friends to come and see its trial run. Early upon the morning when they hoped to succeed, a messenger came with sad news. The new boat had broken in 2. The machinery was too heavy for it and had sunk to the bottom of the river Seine. Mr. Fulton had not had his breakfast, but he hurried to the river and worked standing in the cold water. In 24 hours, he had saved the machinery and some other parts of the boat, but it made him sick and he never was so strong again. Of course, he felt greatly discouraged, but they went to work again. They built another boat, and this one was a success. It was 66 feet long and moved by wheels on the side. Mr. Livingston and Mr. Fulton decided to try again in America upon the Hudson River. Okay, again, looking at paragraph 3, and we need to remember an ambassador is a helper in another country. So, looking at paragraph 3, Mr. Livingston was again given the same privileges by the state of New York. Okay, I know I read that somewhere in paragraph 1, so I'm going to underline that he was again given the same privileges by the state of New York. But this time, Mr. Fulton was his partner. They were given 2 years in which to make their boat. They were to make one which could go 4 miles an hour. They took much money, and Mr. Fulton promised to ask only a certain sum of Mr. Livingston. Okay, so remember SUM, that type of sum is the answer to an addition problem. So it's saying he's only asking for a certain amount of money from Mr. Livingston. But this sum proved to be too small, so he went to see a friend and talked long and earnestly to him. Okay, because if I scroll down with these lines here, you're not going to be able to see. So go ahead and pause your screen if you need more time, making sure you have this underlined while I clear, and then we will come back to the rest of paragraph 3. All right, continuing on with paragraph 3. But the friend grew tired and told him he must go home or go to bed. Mr. Fulton wanted $1,000. His friend said he would see him again. Mr. Fulton came again before the poor man had any breakfast. He gave him no peace, and he got his money at last. Mr. Fulton was much laughed at for trying to make such a boat. The boat was called by people Fulton's Folly. His friends would listen politely to him, but he said he knew they did not believe in him. He often, as he walked about, heard people laugh at him, but at last the boat was done. All right, paragraph 4. The sun rose smiling on that August morning while the world was enjoying its morning nap. Only a few people were on the shores. Gracefully the boat was moved from the Jersey shore. Those who saw were amazed. Old sailors were frightened. When they saw a boat with no sails, they thought it was an evil spirit. But the long line of black smoke which they saw was only the breath of the dear old giant steam. This boat was called the Clermont. It passed the city of New York and its beautiful highlands of the Hudson. It puffed patiently on until it reached Albany. All along the shores, people watched it breathlessly. Everybody stopped laughing and cheered. The Clermont had gone 150 miles in 32 hours. Except that the ocean steamships are larger, handsomer, and more finely finished, they are much like Mr. Fulton's Clermont. Who can doubt Mr. Fulton's joy at his success? At last he found a way to make all the nations know each other. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then I am going to reshare it with you. So you should be looking at a document. So I already did this. I took the things that I wrote down from an underline from paragraph 1 and paragraph 3. So in paragraph 1, he believed boats could move by steam. He was given the right of all steamboats for 20 years by the New York State, and Livingston and Fulton made a steamboat after meeting. In paragraph 3, Livingston was given the same privileges by New York State as before. He was given 2 years to make a boat, and he had to ask people for money, and he was laughed at, but that's not as important. So based on the 2 paragraphs that I had to connect, I see that the same is that they were given the right of steamboats by New York State. Here I want you all to pause your screen and go ahead and write down what's under the column for paragraph 1 and what's under the column for paragraph 3. And again, because these are the same here and here, our connection would have to be they are given the right of steamboats by New York State. This is going to be my blind answer, the same or the center connection. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then I'm going to share it again with you. So I am going to put my blind answer as that he was given rights of steamboats by New York. So even though that Livingston and Fulton invited friends to come see the boat they built together, that's not mentioned in paragraph 1 or paragraph 3, even though it was mentioned in the text. So I can cross off A. Livingston was given the right of all steamboats by the state of New York. Well, that was mentioned in both paragraph 1 and paragraph 3, so this is a possible answer. The people were impressed with the boats. Yes, they were, and yes, it was mentioned in the text, but it was not mentioned in paragraph 1 or paragraph 3, so I can cross off C. And the boats moved quickly through the water. Well, not at first. They were only moving 4 miles per hour, and that's pretty slow, but it told us in the text that it started to move faster than the other boats that were with sails and how it continued to improve. So we cannot have D as our answer. So our strong possibility in our answer has to be B. If you need more time, please pause your screen and we will go on to question 2 when you are ready. Okay, so again, let's look at question number 2, which sentence explains the effect of the machinery being too heavy for the first boat. Okay, so we need to think of effect. So basically, what is the problem? What happens because the machinery was too heavy for the first boat? So what do we need to do to our question number 2? Good. Let's box the word effects. And what should we underline? Good. Machinery being too heavy for the first boat. Okay, so what should we do? Yes, we are going to look back into our text where it says the machinery was too heavy for the first boat. Let's go back into our text and let's see who can find where it is mentioned that the machinery was too heavy. Okay, perfect. So looking in paragraph 2, I love how you all were able to go back and find your evidence in your text. It says, a messenger came with sad news. The new boat had broken in 2. The machinery was too heavy for it, and it had sunk to the bottom of the river. Perfect. So again, yes, that is question number 2. So again, if you need more time, go ahead and pause your screen. Make sure we have this underlined, and let's keep in mind we're not comparing or contrasting or trying to connect 2 passages. It's a recall question, so we don't have to make a chart. All we need is our blind answer. Okay, so let's go back into question number 2 and put our blind answer. So what happens? Yes, the boats broke in 2. Awesome job. So what should we do? Yeah, we need to go through our process of elimination. A messenger came with sad news. What should we do to answer choice A? Yes, even though it was in the text, it was not the reason, that wasn't the outcome of the machinery being too heavy. So just because the messenger came with sad news doesn't mean that was the reason the machinery was too heavy. So good, let's cross off A. What about B? The new boat had broken in 2. Yes, that would be a possible answer. Good, because of how heavy it was. Because the boat was heavy, it broke in 2 and it sank. What about answer choice C? But it made him sick and he was never so strong again. Perfect, yes. Even though it was mentioned in the text, the fact that the machinery was too heavy is not the reason that it made him sick. So good, crossing off C. They were given 2 years in which to make their boat. Good. Again, just because it was mentioned in the text, it was not the reason that the machinery was too heavy for the first boat. So our strong possibility and our answer choice has to be B. Awesome job going back into the text and finding your evidence. Okay. You are going to do questions 3, 4, and 5. I'm going to go through them quickly with you. So look at question 3. What is the connection between paragraphs 1 and 4? Again, you need to think about how are 1 and 4 similar. What are they mentioning that is the same? Paragraph 4, how does paragraph 4 connect to the rest of the text? You're not really making a 3-column chart for this because you're comparing all 4. You're trying to connect all 4 paragraphs. So how are they the same? What is paragraph 4 doing for the story or for the text? And question 5, I'm sorry, which statement shows that people thought differently about the steamboat by the end of the text? Okay, so compare and contrast. How do they feel at the beginning? How do they feel at the end? Okay, remember you are doing your Kahoot. Answer your questions on your paper first. For your Kahoot, make sure you're putting in your correct name and you're only taking it one time. You all did a very awesome job today, and I will see you all on Thursday, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday.